As the world marks 50 years since Steven Spielberg's movie Jaws first carved fear into the waves, Latin America finds itself tangled in a strange echo. The Jaws anniversary, a significant event in the history of cinema and popular culture, seems to have stirred a strange series of events in our waters. Three white shark attacks, rare in our waters, have unfolded, almost as if summoned by the anniversary itself. One of them, unspeakably brutal, left a man without his head, a detail that reads like cinema yet belongs to history. Are there others, forgotten or unreported, hidden in the currents? Perhaps. And let me be clear, shark attacks in this region are not unusual in themselves. Along the Caribbean reef shark drifts near divers, shy until food stirs its temper. Tigers and hammerheads patrol deeper blue, while docile nurse sharks bite if pushed. In Central America, bull sharks dominate Nicaragua, moving between ocean and freshwater rivers with unnerving ease, one of the three most dangerous sharks in the world. Tigers stalk the isles of Costa Rica, while Belize has reef and nurse sharks in its lagoons. And farther south, Brazil's coast keeps its grim tally mostly in the jaws of bull and tiger sharks, predators of warm, shallow waters. But whites? The great white is a winter rumor, a shadow that rarely strays into these seas. Its presence, or rather the lack thereof, is what makes these three strikes so close together feel less like statistics and more like a whisper. Coincidence, perhaps, or something older, stranger, keeping pace with memory as we look back half a century to the shark that first taught the world how to fear. Uncover Latin America's most daring secrets. Each story is meticulously fact-checked, footnoted, and utterly captivating. I'm Arturo, and this is Latin Lore. We don't just tell stories, we bring them to life, to a Latin American way of life. From Latin America's history to mysteries, true crime, and local legends, we offer a unique blend of intrigue and cultural richness that you won't find anywhere else. Every story undergoes a rigorous triple verification process in the archives before it's delivered to your headphones, ensuring you receive the most accurate and fascinating tales. Hit subscribe. Fresh revelations drop every week, perfect for your next campfire debate. The soundtrack of fear. They say fear has a soundtrack. 2 notes, low, steady, like a heartbeat underwater. Half a century ago, those notes escaped from a movie theater and slipped straight into the ocean. Jaws premiered on June 20th, 1975, and the world changed. It wasn't just a summer thriller. It was a warning disguised as entertainment. A mechanical shark with rusted jaws and a faulty motor became a myth stitched into the minds of swimmers, surfers, sailors. And whether you were on the Jersey Shore or the beaches of Rio, you learned to glance twice at the waterline. The film made a killer of a creature that rarely even looks our way. It taught us that the great white shark was out there, circling, watching, waiting. It fed something ancient, and like all good legends, it traveled. But legends don't always survive contact with the truth. Because in the real world, in Latin America, white sharks are rarely the villains. Most of our shark incidents come from bull sharks or tigers, shallow water stalkers, warm water hunters, the kinds that share our surf, our reefs, our river mouths, but not whites, not often, except for 3 times, 3 strikes, each more brutal than the last. And the third was something else entirely. The Gulf that whispers names. The Gulf of California is a strange sea, quiet, shimmering, shaped like a scar. It runs between Baja and mainland Mexico, a desert bordered by water filled with currents that remember ancient migrations. For local divers, it's more workplace than wonderland. They aren't dropping for thrills. They're hunting mollusks, calo de hacha, axe tripe, scallops prized for their meat. The job is simple. Breathe from the compressor, drop to the seafloor, scrape and collect, again and again, day after day. That's what Nahum Aguilera was doing on December 18th, 2018. He was no tourist. He knew these waters, knew the sound of the motor, the smell of diesel, the slow push of sand when you walk the bottom. He wasn't afraid. He should have been. What exactly happened down there is pieced together from wounds, from screams, from the panicked hands of the men who pulled him back. But the facts are clear. The strike came fast and high. His left leg was gone. His abdomen was open. His shoulder dislocated, maybe from trying to fight. They say he floated for a moment. Friends thought he was having a medical emergency. He was. By the time they pulled him into the panga, it was already too late. The attack was consistent with a large white shark, though it wasn't confirmed. Locals had never seen one this close before, but the wounds, deep, clean, measured, were unlike the ragged tearing of tigers or bulls. That day, something ancient moved under the boat, and it didn't miss. The winter route, February 12th, 2022, Yavaros, a port where the sea is wide and the mornings are bitter with salt. Another diver, another panga, another compressor coughing on deck. His name was Victor Estrella, 56 years old, seasoned, steady. The kind of man whose hands knew the scallops before his eyes did. That morning, everything started the way it always does. Breath, drop, work, return, until it didn't. His tender on the boat felt the tension in the hose, saw it jerk, then again, then violently. It wasn't a snag, it was a struggle. He began pulling hard. Estrella surfaced with leg wounds so devastating there was no question what had done it. They tried, they used pressure, they radioed. They moved faster than a boat should move, but a femoral artery bleeds in heartbeats, not minutes. By the time they made land, the water inside him had already run out. Marine experts identified it as a likely white shark attack, again in winter, again in the Gulf. Again on a diver doing his job, the whisper started. Could they be back? The strike that changed everything. January 5th, 2023, Bahía de Tóbari. Manuel López was in his 50s, a diver, a provider, a man who had done this too long to be nervous. He left the dock that morning the way he had 100 times. Harness strapped, compressor loaded, gear checked, no drama, just the day's work ahead. But winter had brought something with it. Somewhere offshore, a female white shark was moving through cold water, 6 meters long, possibly pregnant, hungry, precise. They say sharks don't see well, that they hunt by silhouette, that they sense electric fields, movement, struggle. And scallop divers, they kneel on the bottom, they bend, they scrape, they stir the sand. They look like sea lions. And this time, the shark didn't guess. It struck. A witness saw it happen. One clean attack, no circling, no second bite. It hit his head and shoulders and removed them in a single blow. There are no words for what it did to his friends on the boat. They pulled what they could from the water. They said his body came up headless. His name came out in whispers. Scientists, seasoned ones, were stunned. Decapitation, almost unheard of. Some said it was a fluke. Some said it was a direct strike pattern used on seals. Some said nothing, because what do you say when the monster from the movie finally steps out of the screen? The aftershock. After Manuel, the government moved. Anti-shark bracelets, electric deterrents were handed out across the Gulf to working divers. They pulse a signal into the water, hoping to disrupt a shark's instinct just long enough to matter. It's not foolproof, but out here, where life walks a tightrope between risk and reward, even a maybe is something. Then, before the year closed, it happened again. December 29th, 2023. Victor Alejandro Soto Garcia, 22 years old, scallop diver, son, brother, a kid really. A white shark hit him deep below the surface and tore open his leg. He bled to death on the ride back to the dock. Another bite, another winter, 4 attacks, 3 confirmed white sharks, 2 confirmed dead, 1 decapitated. The lesson under the waves. Here's what most don't understand. The white shark doesn't stalk Latin America. It visits, occasionally, briefly, but when it does, it writes in blood. Most fatal bites in this region come from bull and tiger sharks, not whites. But the ones that do, they strike like thunder. Guadalupe Island, Baja. The white sharks gather there in the fall. Then they move to deep offshore zones nicknamed shark cafes, where they dive deep for reasons we still don't understand. And some, especially large females, drift inland in the winter, toward Sonora, toward the Gulf. Why? To hunt, to give birth, to follow prey routes older than memory. The water gets colder, the pinnipeds grow fat, and the divers keep diving. It's not a pattern yet, but it's not noise either. The math of death. When a white shark bites a leg, it can hit the femoral artery. When that artery goes, you bleed out in under 5 minutes, sometimes 2. Tourniquets work, but only if you're lucky, only if someone's watching, only if someone reacts fast. Manuel never got that chance. A bite to the head and shoulders, that's not survivable, not by seconds, not by science, not by faith. Experts said they'd never seen anything like it. The new ritual. Now in Sonora, men speak softer in the mornings. They check their bracelets twice. They dive in pairs. They keep knives close and radios closer. And they remember names. Nahum, Victor, Manuel, Victor Alejandro. They don't tell stories. They tell facts. They say, don't dive alone. They say December and January belong to them. They say, if the water feels wrong, listen to it. No one talks about monsters anymore. Only migration, only hunger, only mistakes that can't be undone. The thing that haunts, it's not the shark, it's the silence. The silence that comes after the hose jerks, after the engine turns, after the boat speeds toward shore with someone gone, after the pier fills with mothers. It's that silence that shapes a legend, and legends here are not written in fear, they're written in respect. The ledger. The sea keeps two ledgers, one for what it gives, one for what it takes. For 50 years we feared the wrong thing, not the shark, but the silence that follows the splash, the names the sea doesn't return. What happened to Manuel Lopez may be one of the most brutal shark attacks ever recorded, but it wasn't a monster. It was a mistake of geometry, hunger, and time. It was a creature doing what it's done since before we had words for fear. But now we have names, and names carry weight. Remember them, say them, not in terror, but in tribute. Thank you for exploring the hidden trails of Latin America with me. Share your theories in the comments below, and until then, let's keep the legends alive and the facts blazing together. I'm Arturo, and this is Latin Laura. If tonight's story has unsettled you, subscribe and ring the bell because Latin America's darkest stories are far from over.